Hello everyone, Coasters and Places here, back with another roller coaster video. And today I'm going to be talking about every single Six Flags Entertainment Corp park. And this is after the merger where Six Flags and Cedar Fair are one company now. And what I'm going to be talking about is what coaster you should ride first when you get to each of these parks. So there is a certain strategy that I'd recommend using at each park, and this strategy will especially apply on busy days. And this strategy more applies as long as you can get there, like say 30 minutes before park opening, the park, get all your stuff together, and be ready at rope drop. This strategy and these tips aren't really going to apply as much if you're getting there 2 hours after park opening because the crowds are already there. So for each park, I'm just going to talk about the very first coaster you should hit in each park. And it's usually because of capacity or operations is why this should be the very first coaster you should get to. But as a general strategy, I always recommend going to the back of the park first and hitting up maybe the most popular ride back there first, and then working towards the front, because when people come in, what they will tend to do is, especially if they have kids with them, they'll be like, I want to ride this, and the kids will drag them to this ride, and they'll see the rides at the front first, and then they'll work their way around the park. But if you just go ahead and take that all the way to the back of the park and start from there, you can beat some of the crowds, and always get there before park opens so you're ready at rope drop. So that being said, this is just my personal picks of what coaster that I would ride first at each Six Flags Entertainment Corp park. You may not agree. You may think, okay, I'd rather ride this coaster first. And the biggest note too is their most popular coaster may not always be the best coaster to ride first. And that could be simply because a lot of times the most popular coasters at certain parks actually have really good capacity, especially B&Ms. They have amazing capacity, so they can get long lines, but the lines are going to move, versus a maybe not as popular ride have a horrible capacity, so maybe not as long a line, that line isn't moving. So let's get started. We're going to work from West Coast to East Coast. Starting with Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, it's the furthest west park that the Six Flags Entertainment Corp has. I highly recommend going to the Flash Vertical Velocity first. The reason why I recommend this is because reliability issues for one, and for two, I recommend it because it can only run single train ops, which is automatically going to slow a train down. Anytime you do see a ride that can only run a single train, like boomerangs, these impulse coasters, they're automatically something you're going to want to try to hit first, because their capacity is automatically just going to be lower, which is automatically going to result in increased lines as the day goes on. At California's Great America, I'd recommend riding Railblazer first, because it is a single rail Raptor model from RMC, and the trains are not super long, so the capacity on this can be diminished because of that, and this is also a super popular ride, so those two in combination can lead to some crazy lines. So this is going to be the one that I recommend you definitely should be hitting first, the California's Great America. For Six Flags Magic Mountain, there's some different options you can do here, since this is generally a pretty busy park loaded with coasters. I recommend, if you can, do a fast pass for this park. If you cannot, first one I do recommend would be West Coast Racers. That one for sure, because capacity. And then if not, for more reliability and also capacity, I would do Superman Escape from Krypton or Full Throttle. Especially if you can do all three of those, that would be your best bet. Those coasters, hands down, would be the ones I would tackle first at Magic Mountain. For Knott's Berry Farm, I would recommend going and doing Sierra Sidewinder first. It's a great family coaster, but it does get some crazy lines with those smaller trains that don't hold a lot of people. and people love this thing. So Sierra Sidewinder, definitely. If you choose not to ride Sierra Sidewinder or don't want to go there first, I would do Accelerator simply because of its reliability issues. So Sierra Sidewinder and then probably Accelerator after that. Six Flags Fiesta Texas is up next, and for this park I'd recommend doing Poltergeist, or you could also do Boomerang first, as they have relatively low capacity. Poltergeist in particular gets pretty long lines, but Boomerang can only run one train, so that's why Boomerang, but either of those would be good options to go to first. Alright, at Frontier City in Oklahoma City, honestly, on your visit you should be able to do every coaster no matter what order you go in. But if you only have a little bit of time, the first coaster that you want to head to is Diamondback. It is the most popular Aero Shuttle Loop coaster, and it's, again, the most popular coaster that they have at Frontier City. So that's the one you'd want to go to first. For Six Flags Over Texas, I think I'd recommend La Vibora, the Alpine bobsled coaster at the park. Capacity, not that great, but not only that, but this thing gets insanely long lines. It's a pretty popular ride, and the lines just get long, and for ops or whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to move all that well. So for that reason, I'd definitely say La Vibora would be your best bet to hit up first to avoid those ridiculously long lines. Now we're at Worlds of Fun. The best coaster to ride first at Worlds of Fun is going to be the Family Spinning Dragons. It gets a long line, and capacity is very limited on this ride, so this would be the coaster to hit up first when you begin your day at Worlds of Fun. For Valley Fair, I would highly recommend going to Still Venom first. It is an intimate impulse coaster, and it has very limited capacity because it can only run one train. Sometimes has some reliability issues as well. So that's definitely why I'd recommend hitting up Still Venom first when you get to Valley Fair. So the coaster to go to first at Six Flags St. Louis is going to be Mr. Freeze Reverse Blast. This is probably the most popular coaster at the park. Gets some long lines. Capacity ops, So this is the ride that I definitely choose to go to first at Six Flags. Pretty much most of the other rides at Six Flags St. Louis actually have pretty decent capacity, though. This one, though, definitely ride first. For Six Flags Great America, you want to go to Max Force first. It is very, very popular here, maybe one of their most popular, if not the most popular ride at Six Flags Great America. It gets crazy long lines. It's not the most reliable ride either. Dispatches can be kind of slow as well. Definitely go ride Max Force first when you get to the park. Michigan's Adventure is another park where I feel like you could easily get everything done in one day. Shivering Timbers is definitely by far their most popular ride, but it has pretty good capacity, pretty great operations. So the coaster I'd recommend going to first to get on would be the Mad Mouse. So capacity's not great on this one, and it gets pretty long lines on busier days because it's just a good, popular family ride at Michigan's Adventure. So that'd be the coaster to go to first. At Six Flags Over Georgia, there's a couple different approaches you could take. You could choose to ride Twisted Cyclone first, which would be a good choice. It does get crazy lines, even though capacity isn't awful. The lines, people rush to it, just can be out of control. The other option would be Daredevil Dive, which doesn't have as great of capacity and can get some decent lines as well. Either way, especially if you could hit both of them up pretty early, knock them out, then everything else in the park shouldn't be too bad to get on. But Twisted Cyclone and Daredevil Dive for sure. So Kings Island, This is my home Cedar Fair, now Six Flags park. So at this park, I recommend, there's 3 different options you could choose to do. First off, you could make a left, go to Invertigo first. Invertigo doesn't have great capacity, is not very reliable, and just because it's a boomerang, you can only run 1 train. Another option, Flight of Fear, gets incredibly long lines, and it moves so slow. That'd be a great option to go to first as well. Third option, the Backlot Stunt Coaster. Gets really long lines because it's a good family coaster, and its capacity is not the best. So 3 different options to go to first. Flight of Fear and Stunt Coaster are relatively near each other. If you wanted to hit those 2 up together, that would be a good option. Cedar Point. So for Cedar Point, when you get to the park, rope drop, I recommend hightailing it straight back and hitting up Still Vengeance, Maverick, knock them out first thing. They are the 2 most popular coasters by far in the park, and they will get crazy long lines. If Top Thrill 2 does ever open up again this season, or whenever it does open, hands down go to that first. Throw the rest of this for Cedar Point out the window, go to Top Thrill 2 first. But assuming it's not open, hightail it back to Still Vengeance and Maverick, hit them up, just because they are crazy popular, and also Maverick tends to go down a lot, especially. Still Vengeance can, but not like Maverick. The other option to do is get there first thing, go to Wild Mouse because it does not have great capacity, and then hightail it back to Still Vengeance and Maverick, and you should still be able to get on them relatively quickly. That would be a good strategy too, with Wild Mouse's terrible capacity. Canada's Wonderland up in Vaughan, Ontario. My personal recommendation would be go to Wonder Mountain's Guardian. Get on that first. It gets crazy long lines, and the capacity is absolutely terrible on this thing. The other coaster also to hit pretty early would be the Backlot Stunt Coaster that they have here, just like they do at Kings Island, because it's a pretty popular ride and not the best capacity, but Wonder Mountain's Guardian should definitely be done first. For Carowinds, I highly recommend going to Nighthawk first. This coaster is incredibly slow to load. It also has reliability issues. Just the nature of the restraint just makes this thing a slow loader, and I mean the slow dispatches will definitely make the line longer. It's definitely a fun ride, but I would get there as early as you can to the park and ride Nighthawk first. For Darien Lake, I'd recommend Tantrum because of capacity issues, and in general I feel like Darien Lake isn't the best with their operations like some parks are, but Tantrum definitely capacity makes this line move slow. You could also argue to go to Ride of Still first. Ride of Still moves faster though, has a higher capacity, but Ride of Still would still be a good ride to get early on for sure. So King's Dominion, this is another park where there's a few different options that you can take. So just like Kings Island, you can go to Flight of Fear because same deal, it can get some pretty bad lines and it moves pretty slow. Same with the Backlot Stunt Coaster. It's pretty popular, capacity not that great, line moves slow. For the third one, this one's probably the one I probably go for first, would be Tumbili, because the capacity is just slow. That line just moves so slow, and it's pretty popular being new-ish still. And yeah, just definitely Tumbili would be the one I would recommend first. Now we're moving on to Six Flags America. Ragin' Cajun would be the one that I would ride first here. It gets pretty long lines, and rightfully so. It is a pretty fun coaster. Just a lot of people want to ride this. Decent family coaster. So with those long lines, not the best capacity, it's going to be something you want to hit up early. Dorney Park is up next, and the coaster here I'd recommend is Possessed. Again, it is an intimate impulse, so this is I believe the third one that's popped up on this list prefer a park, simply because they can only run one train at a time, and that automatically is going to slow down any line. The reliability can be iffy, and because that one train ops and reliability, the line's going to get long, you know. So definitely hit this coaster up first at Dorney. So at Luron, a couple different options here. You can choose to ride Dragon first, which is the indoor coaster. It does get some crazy long lines, especially on hotter days. And not only that, but it only has one train, so that's definitely going to slow down the line. The other option to ride, which also gets crazy long lines, low capacity, is the Toboggan Nordique, which is the Wild Mouse coaster at Luron. So either coaster would be great options to ride first. Moving on to Six Flags Great Escape, which I would be highly surprised if you honestly couldn't ride everything you wanted to ride here in a day. But just in case, I go to Flashback first because it can only run one train, as it is a boomerang. So that naturally is going to slow down the line and limit capacity. Again, Flashback would be the one to go to. At Six Flags Great Adventure, a park with plenty of top tier coasters, Jersey Devil Coaster would be the one that I would recommend going to first. The capacity, not awful, could be a lot better, but lately they've only been running one train on this ride. Like, this is a super popular ride, and lately they've only been running one train, and that makes the lines crazy. Even running two trains, the lines are still pretty crazy because it's a popular ride with not the best capacity. So this would be the one that I would definitely go to first when you get to Great Adventure. So the very last park to talk about today is Six Flags New England. I'd recommend going to Pandemonium first because it has terrible capacity, which is going to cause any line to move slow. And also people do recommend going to Superman first because people race to this thing and it just super popular, gets crazy lines. That is also a pretty good strategy if you don't want to ride Pandemonium or choose not to do Pandemonium. 100% Superman would be a good strategy as well. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you found it useful in planning your day at whichever park or parks you're wanting to visit. And again, these are just merely suggestions of what I would personally recommend doing at each park to ride first to be able to fit in as many rides as possible through your day. Thanks so much, and please subscribe and like this video. Thanks.